Hey, hey, hey. Oh, well, come back over here. Get the right screen. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Critical Conversations show. Let's make sure we're all good. Yes, we are. Hey, everybody. I see some of the usual suspects in the chat. Thank you very much for coming around. I know you have many choices on your Friday evening as to where you might spend your time, and I appreciate you spending your time with me. I really do. Boy, we got some interesting things to talk about. And as you can see, I'm flying solo tonight again. I am, Mel is apologetic, but she's not feeling really great. She had some things. So we're gonna let her have the night off, and that's what we're doing. So I've got a lot to cover here tonight. I don't know if we're gonna get through all of this, but we got some fun stuff ahead, hopefully. Excellent. Yep, everything's fine. Yeah, and Mal is fine. She's just chilling over in the living room with Benson, who you will also see in a moment. But there's a difference between chilling on a Friday night and then being camera ready and doing a show. And so we were like, okay, fine. Now I'll just fly solo tonight. It's not a problem. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll say. I definitely let Mel know that you guys miss her. She always takes that to heart. Okay. So okay. So, behave yourself, Chad. All right. So let's see here. Let's get started with our usual Snuggles, Not Struggles cam. Let me get that out of the way, and we'll go from there. So this is our Benson cam. This was him again. Usually these get taken same day. This was just like an hour or two ago. And this is how I end up usually playing with him in the hallway. This is our hall, and he loves that rope. And I was trying to back off. I was trying to see if I could just get some cam with him sitting there, but he is super pumped. And so we end up playing this tug-a-rope. Sort of tug-a-fetch, I think is what Mel calls it. And he, I throw that rope and then he comes and brings it back, and then we have some tug-of-war, and then he'll let it go and I throw it off and he'll go get it again, and we just go back and forth with this. But lately he's gotten into this thing where he'll grab the rope and then he'll just sit there. He'll just sit on the ground chewing on it. and then I have to encourage him to come over and bring it to me. And it's all in good fun. He's having a great time with it, and we go back and forth until he calms down, and then he just routinely brings it back to me. Okay, there we are back. So it's kind of interesting how it's a way of burning a lot of energy for him, and him having some fun back and forth with the rope. And then as I don't know what it is with dogs or with him specifically, or just dog breeds, where some are just way more excitable than others. And when they get into that like bzz mode where their heart's going and they're all adrenalized, they're just not listening. They're just not. It's like the ears shut down or something. All the little conditioning you're doing and training them just kind of goes away for a little bit, and then as things balance out, then they start hearing your commands again. This has been our experience with Benson, at least, and it's been fun and interesting to watch this and have to just sort of roll with it when it's happening. He's becoming a teenager. There we go. That's right. Yeah, he's definitely he is definitely a Shih Tzu. They're stubborn. They can be very stubborn. He wants what he wants, and he'll come in the morning. He'll come let us know. In the evening, he'll come let us know when he wants to go outside. He's got a little code system where he paws me. Whereas when he wants to play, he'll kind of growl at me a little bit, or he'll jump up and down, but it's not the same thing as when he's pawing. So he's developed this little signal system that is just the cutest damn thing. And then when we're distressed or we're having an emotional issue or a moment or whatever, he'll come and he'll put himself on you, but it's not the same level of frantic. He's more comforting. So the many moods of Benson, it's a lot of fun watching and learning from him. And I've learned a lot watching him. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. Benson's training us. That's exactly right. Yeah. So, okay. Snuggles, not struggles. I had another thought I wanted to run by you guys, totally disrelated to the topic tonight that I was going to bring up, or that I'm bringing up, and that has to do with Netflix and streaming services and how we think about. I was talking to Mel about this the other day, and I thought maybe some of you guys could relate. That the whole attitude, you know, when a new movie or new TV show or new content, as we put it now these days, comes out. And I think it was the new Star Wars series, The Acolyte, that prompted me to think about this, which I'm not. Anyway, that's a whole separate thing from what I'm going to talk about right now. The Acolyte's not important. But streaming services have really changed how we interact with entertainment. And that's been analyzed to death, I'm sure. I'm not saying anything new. But it's really changed. If you take that one step further, you can see that sort of culturally, like nationwide or even maybe worldwide, but certainly with us, the way we engage with our entertainment and schedule our lives around it has really changed from how it used to be when it was more of an event. When you had TV or a movie, you had to go out of your way to be at the location in your home or somewhere where there was a TV when the show was on. And if you weren't going to see it. And then the VCR came out, and then you could record it. And that was the first step of being able to not have to be there. And ever since then, it's been a gradual turn away from that, so that now when new stuff comes out, it's a little bit, it's not like there's a big collective shrug. There's an awful lot of people who are very interested in seeing things when they first come out. If there's anticipation or, you know, rumor about a new thing. But so many shows and series just come with a yawn. It's nobody even notices. They come, they go. And we don't schedule our lives around entertainment as much. And where this goes is that we don't value it as much. There's also the volume of it has gone, you know, nuclear. So there's just shows. You'll never watch all the shows. There was a time when, you know, theoretically in a day or in a job in a year, you could, you know, watch all the movies or watch all the, you know, a good chunk of the shows when it was network TV and stuff like that, right? But now that's impossible. So there's also a bit of an apathy in the consumer about, you know, you're going to have to make decisions about what you're going to watch or not. And again, the value of things, I feel, kind of comes down when there's such a gluttony of, yeah, I'm probably not using that word right, such a glut, maybe, of content. There's so much of it that it becomes overwhelming or tiring or, you know, not that valuable, not that like, ooh, like what, you know, and there's no longer the same kind of cultural, you know, at work the next day or on the school ground the next day or at you know, wherever you are the next day after a show airs or premieres. You know, there's that excited around the cooler talk or people are talking about it. I remember being on the playground. We used to just, you know, oh, did you see the show last night? Did you see the show last night? Because if you didn't, you weren't seeing it. And now the sort of unexpected, unintended consequence of providing us with all the entertainment we could ever possibly want, I guess, was the sort of high stated goal, has instead cheapened all of entertainment and made it not so interesting or valuable or important to us. And there's so much more criticism and so much more of a cottage industry developed on social media around just just total criticism, negative criticism, like a negativity toward anything that comes out. It becomes this whole thing to hate on it. And I'm on board with some of that when I hate the product too, but I'm just sort of noticing and thinking to myself right now, yeah, but look, there's a whole industry that's built up around this. And, you know, and back in the day, it was like a couple critics, you know, I mean, Siskel and Ebert dominated the movie criticism because they were the first guys to get a TV show that I remember. So it just seems like the unintended consequence of trying to get more value or squeeze more value out of an entertainment catalog by providing the full scope of it. You know, all the movies from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even earlier, are now available to us. We can download it. We can find it on a streaming service. We can find it at a library. We can find a lot. We can't find everything, but we can find a lot. But by proliferating it to that degree, they cheapened it and they sucked value out of it, you know, over a period of a couple decades. It didn't take that long. And we see such a shift now that movies are now considered are becoming a relic or are becoming considered openly discussed in Hollywood by the major players as a dying art, movie making. You know, it's all gone digital and streaming, and it's limited series, or it's movies for Apple or for Netflix or Hulu or Disney or whoever. They're the new, you know, future studios, right? Is because these guys couldn't leave their hands off of just doing a streaming model because they were losing value. They were probably losing money, right? I'm guessing. Trying to soak all this blood from these rocks, that they ended up becoming production companies and producing their own content. And that's why they, you know, charge an arm and a leg to us all now. It's just interesting where things go. I didn't really have like some big, huge gotcha point to it other than, wow, wasn't it interesting how they actually sucked all the value out of this while trying to make it seem or come across as more valuable. And it would just struck me that the how we shoot ourselves in the foot unintentionally. I don't think the guy who started Netflix or the people who started the streaming services, the copycat Netflix, were thinking, which were themselves copies of the earlier cable system, right? Remember On TV and what was the other one? Anyway, the original cable companies, right? All of this was trying to, you know, get more value out of all this stuff, and it just kind of didn't. It kind of made it go the other direction and change society in ways that we never imagined or saw coming. You know, the way we live our lives, I think, was the thing that hit me. Was like, wow, what a one thing in one part of our life in terms of entertainment, how we consume it, has changed our entire scheduling and the way we even think about entertainment. And that's really, I don't know, I just think that's interesting. I thought it was worth pointing out. And yeah, and there's a lot of creativity sucked out of this stuff. And wokeism is one thing. There's a lot of factors at play. If you go to, by the way, if you want to go even higher on the food chain beyond just the writer room and the creative directors who are sort of imposing a lot of lecturing type content on us in the name of entertainment. I don't know who hires these people or how that happens behind the scenes, but I know that the people 1, 2, 3 levels above them aren't even into the creativity of it. That's not even what they're there for. It is purely about sucking value out of intellectual properties, out of IPs, and across all the platforms and in every way possible. So anyway, I won't belabor this point. This isn't really the point of the show tonight, I know. But I just thought it was kind of an interesting thing to comment on in terms of, I'm always talking about critical thinking and unintended consequences and how we should be thinking about what are the known consequences of what our decisions might mean for us or for our family or our friends, people around us. But when I talk about unintended consequences, like here's a big one, And I just thought, wow, I should talk about that for a minute, like this. Who could have thunk that all of this would have come from a couple people making a couple decisions that were actually pretty goddamn important to all of us, that we didn't decide, nobody asked us, it just happened. And as a result of it happening, our entire culture is different now. It progressed in this direction because of a few decisions made by a few people. And when people talk about, these vast conspiracies and conspiracy theories and the negative and unintended consequences of things that happen in our society, I think about this kind of thing. I go, okay, so you're telling me that there's smoky, dark men, there's dark men in a smoky room deciding this, premeditatively figuring this out. And my answer to that, my response to that, pretty much 100% of the time is, are you really that sure? Do you really have that much faith in the planning, prediction, and execution ability of a group of human beings anywhere that they could pull off a 20-year plan that precisely? The 9/11 truth and the flat earth crap and all that, and some of these other government things are the outcomes. You see the outcome, and then the conspiracy theorists go, oh yeah, well, this is because a bunch of people planned it to be this way. And I just go, no, man, this is way more chaotic than I think you might give credibility to, right? That you want to believe how random this world really is, and how these unintended consequences are wholly unintended, not predicted, not even seen at all. It's just funny. Yeah, exactly. What happened to Blockbuster and Hollywood video stores? Yeah, they are gone. Okay, so oh wow, I took a little bit longer on that than I intended to. So let's get to this. Now, I have prepared papers. I've actually got more printed out tonight than I've ever had before to go over with you guys. So why don't we just go ahead and get right to it? I noted last week when I was doing my live Q&A show that there were a lot of questions coming in on the subject of narcissism. And I had done a show here last week about flying monkeys. And I showed you Dr. Ramani and somebody out there, was inspired and took that and connected that with some SPTV stuff. And good on you. I was speaking in a much more broad sense in talking about the phenomena of flying monkeys and narcissists and how that relationship works. And, there's a lot of different terms for that, inner circle, entourage, followers, believers, that, all these various terms or ideas you could use to describe what flying monkeys are. But a lot of questions were coming in about narcissism. And it's been quite a while since I've done a show about that topic. Years ago, I remember I did a few shows with Rachel Bernstein about this. We talked about the differences between, narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths and these various generalized terms that really aren't even diagnostic terms anymore. At least if you listen to John Atack, which I did today and looking into some stuff. So narcissism. So what is this? What is this about? And what does this have to do with things? Now, first off, as the Holy Spackle here points out, and as I have said many, many, many times, this is a very overused term. Very overused, to the point now where it's become a generalized idea and gone far beyond a diagnostic label. So there's, anyway, yeah, so that's happened. That's happening. And it's going to, and like things that, the public get hold of, when they take these more clinical or more academic or more, highbrow terms. I'm thinking narcissist, gaslighting, sociopathy. And it sort of devolves into this more generalized use because people assign values to this. And that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is this is not going to be the show of those evil people, those narcissists, because not all narcissists are evil people. It's a condition, it's a disorder, it's a personality disorder. It's diagnosable, it's treatable. So let's talk about it. And I printed some stuff off from some articles that I'm just going to read from. Later on, I will try to remember tonight or tomorrow to get all the links for all of this into the description of this video. I know sometimes I'm a little slow at that, but I do get it done. So I will get the links to these articles up for you guys. And this one was, well, there's stuff from the DSM here, but let's just go into it. Many people may be familiar with the casual use of the term narcissist, referring to a person who is very self-centered, boastful, and hungry for attention and admiration. However, narcissistic personality disorder, a condition described in the DSM-5, is more severe, persistent, and problematic. It's not just a jerk any more than a gaslighter, or gaslighting is just a liar lying. There's more depth to this than the surface. Narcissistic personality disorder is complicated and nuanced. It's defined as a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, sense of superiority in fantasy or behavior, need for admiration, and lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and occurring in a variety of contexts. An estimated 1 to 2% of the U.S. population has narcissistic personality disorder. 300 million people in the United States. 1 to 2% of them, narcissists. That's a lot of folks out there. That's a lot. This describes an awful lot of people. In addition to grandiosity, narcissistic personality disorder has a significant vulnerability aspect, and individuals may alternate between the two. Vulnerability may make individuals very sensitive to criticism or defeat, and although they may not show it, those experiences may leave them feeling ashamed, degraded, and empty. People with the disorder may react to criticism or defeat with disdain and defiance, or with social withdrawal or an appearance of humility, which masks the grandiosity. Although they seem like quite different traits, researchers have found that both aspects of narcissism have in common selfishness, deceitfulness, and callousness. There's a number of papers being cited in here as well. One review study highlighted the variability in the disorder, noting that, quote, individuals with narcissistic personality disorder may be grandiose or self-loathing, extroverted or socially isolated, captains of industry, or unable to maintain steady employment, model citizens, or prone to antisocial activities. They're all over the place. You can't identify them by their job, by their work habits, by their introversion or extroversion. These are not the character traits that are going to tell you, right? Because there is a lot of variability in this. Individuals with narcissistic personality disorder can be competent and high functioning with professional and social success. Others can have problems functioning, low self-confidence, and difficulty tolerating criticism or defeat. People with I'll just call it NPD. Save my tongue here. People with NPD often have relationship difficulties because of problems related to self-preoccupation, need for admiration, and insensitivity to others. They are also more likely to have other conditions and related problems, including increased distress, depression, and anxiety, and substance use disorders. You mean a narcissist can be depressed or anxious or a drug abuser? Yes. They're not always the king power player. Others can have problems functioning. Yes. Okay, good. So NPD is also associated with increased risk for legal, work, and relationship problems. pretty clear. And they tend to have, one other person I noted talked about how they, damn it, lost my thought there. Oh, how they have a history of broken relationships, how this is actually a way of almost, it's a red flag, you could say, right? Or something you could look for is a history of fly by night, you know what I mean? They're always leaving areas, or they're blowing out, you know, of a job after a year or two or less. Relationships don't last long. You know, they don't have friends for a long period of time. There's not lasting, long-term, intimate, personal relationships. Now, there are cult leaders who will have an inner circle of, or an entourage, or their key flying monkey lieutenants, but they're not usually intimate with those people. And maybe one or two of them. I will offer, for example, David Miscavige with Marty Rathbun. How that relationship was, you know, when Marty took off, Miscavige acted like a jilted lover. I mean, he sent all the goons. And it was a very emotional, fair gaming of Marty Rathbun that was happening over an extended period of time. Well, that was, you know, I think that was one of those rare cases where, you know, two very highly narcissistic individuals formed a kind of bond of sorts in their relationship status. I don't, you know, I'm supposing an awful lot there. You know, I was never in the room alone with either of them, you know, during their conversations. But I'm supposing that is the case. Hey, cool. All right. Okay, now here's where we get into the overuse of this and some misunderstandings of this, though. While many people may have traits that might be considered narcissistic, this is not the same as NPD. Quote, only when these traits are inflexible, maladaptive, and persisting and cause significant functional impairment or subjective distress do they constitute NPD. And that's APA 2022. In addition, the DSM-5 notes that while some narcissistic traits may be common in adolescence, they, quote, do not necessarily indicate that the individual will develop NPD in adulthood. Just because you're a selfish prick doesn't mean you're a narcissist. Just because you're a class A asshole doesn't mean you're a narcissist. Just because you can't see or don't seem to demonstrate any feelings toward other people around you alone doesn't make you a narcissist. At least someone suffering from NPD is in this sense. While research is limited, studies show that people with NPD can improve, but the improvement is gradual and slow. Several treatments have been developed for the condition, and they share common aspects, but it's all psychotherapy in nature. In other words, it's talk therapy. There's no drug, there's no pill, there's no breathing exercise, there's no cognitive behavioral therapy practice or exercise, there's no meditation, there's no hypnotism, there's none of those modalities, you could say, or treatment methods, right, are what are used on people with NPD. They get talk therapy. And the biggest, and we'll go over more about that. Okay, let me make sure that I'm skipping from one page to the next. Attention to, yes. Okay, good. So, how are we doing so far? Okay, good. NPD involves a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, as I read earlier. Those with NPD may, and here's the checklist. Here's the item by item bullet points for you. 1, have a grandiose sense of self-importance. For example, exaggerates achievements and talents. Exaggerates them. Doesn't just have them and brag about them. exaggerates them. Okay, grandiose sense of self-importance. Their bragging doesn't meet their actual talent or skill set. Be preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. And here I will offer my old chestnut of saving the world. This was something I was absolutely preoccupied with, to a degree that, you know, without a grandiose sense of success at that endeavor, I used to feel my life was meaningless. Now, I'm not saying I suffer from NPD, but I am saying that Scientology, and growing up in Scientology and being around Scientology for the first many decades of my life, had a very, very powerful effect on my personality and my entire character and sense of self and integrity and morals and worldview. So was I narcissistic as a Scientologist? Yes, I was. I got over it. And I think that's the main reason why I can sit here feeling like I don't have NPD, because I used to demonstrate traits on this list, and I was reading this going, damn. But like I mentioned earlier, just because you have certain character traits or flaws, we might say, doesn't mean you suffer from an actual personality disorder. So I just wanted to offer that as an example of being preoccupied with a fantasy of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. You know, here we're talking again, exaggerated senses of scale and importance and goal making that are just so unrealistic that you're like, whoa. And the very, very, very few people who do make it, Tom Cruise, for example, I will throw out there, right? Very young, very grandiose sense of self and his accomplishments or his goals for the world, for what he planned on doing. Right from a young age, you could see it in him. He talks openly about it. It wasn't even like something he was hiding. He wanted to be huge. He wanted to be a megastar, and he was willing to do whatever it took, and he put in the work to make that happen. But he had grand plans, and he actually pulled them off. By almost any metric you care to use, Tom Cruise is a dashingly successful individual. I happen to believe that he had his head up his ass when it comes to Xenu and Scientology, and I think he, uses that system of Scientology to his advantage and to the disadvantage of other people around him. But he's that rare example of a person who sees it, works at it, and actually makes it happen. And so people look at that and go, well, anybody can do it, or I can do it, or, it's very inspiring for an awful lot of narcissists out there to emulate Tom Cruise. And if you wonder why tech bros or money bros like Grant Cardone, who's obvious, and another very obvious flaming narcissist, who are all these people that glom onto and around them? A bunch of narcissists, for the most part. A lot of their fanboys and flying monkeys are straight up narcissists themselves. That narcissists aren't people who don't join clubs or groups or get involved with other people. When they see power there, it's like a moth to a flame, right? Okay. Okay, number 3 on this bullet point list is that they believe they are special, quotes, and can only be understood by other special or high status people. This is where the real disdain for people around them comes into play. And I can speak again to the Scientology cult, us versus them attitude, the altitude that you assume as a Sea Org member, as a staff member. And I'll tell you, it's a thing. It's an acknowledged thing within the ex-Scientology world, in the real world outside where ex-Scientologists live, that they carry that former status with them for a period of time. Sometimes they don't even give it up. but they will carry it with them and treat other ex-members. They're no longer in that hierarchy. They're no longer Sea Org members. They're no longer high-level staff members, but they carry this altitude, you know, with them. And that's one of those habits that we get from the cults that we take with us, and we might not even realize we're doing it for a real long time. This is one of those inspection points, and one of those things you have to really kind of shed like a false skin, you know, or a shell, because you're not special. There's nothing special about you just because you were a class 12 auditor or a Sea Org member or a staff member, or, you know, you did people's clear certainty rundowns, or you were an OT3 auditor. No one cares. It doesn't matter. Out in the big wide world, none of that means dick all shit. It doesn't matter. But, you know, social circles and social hierarchies, they're things we create in our minds, right? They're just constructs. So people will carry this out with them. And narcissists, but here's the thing, right? They might eventually, and hopefully eventually through cult recovery and therapy and that kind of thing, they'll give it up. They'll let it go. They'll shed that skin. Narcissists, real narcissists, don't. They hold on. They know that they're special. And don't you dare tell them otherwise. Oh, ooh, right? Oh, ego bruising, narcissistic, entitlement, and the I don't know if the term narcissistic bruising or something like this, that, you know, like when you ego hit them, when you strike at them, and, you know, and it doesn't take a lot. It can be the smallest thing. It can be nothing, a comment you make. Oh, whoa. Here comes the wind up, right in your face. Because they are special, and how dare you, right? Require excessive admiration. And remember, like with destructive cults, the dial is always up to 11. Excessive admiration, right? That's a key word here. Everybody wants to be admired. I don't know a single person who doesn't get off on having other people admire them or admire something that they have done or said or acted or whatever. I've never met that human being who doesn't have the little, somebody acknowledged me, right? Maybe it wasn't you who had to acknowledge them, but, you know, when they get admiration from a crowd or from another person or whatever, you know, it feeds that ego. That's emotional needs, right? We're all about that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be admired at all. It's very, very human. Excessive admiration, though, that's where the dial goes up to 11, and you're looking at something that you go, this is too much. This is too much. I need crowds. I need lots of people, like, you know, loving me and telling me how wonderful and great I am and how I can do no wrong. And they won't, and that's what, you know, again, where they won't hear criticism either. In fact, next one, have a sense of entitlement. That is unreasonable expectations of especially favorable treatment. They're not going to just, you know, go to the fancy restaurant. They're going to demand to be let in at the head of the line. They're going to be demanding the best table, the best this, the best that. And, you know, often these are people who haven't done anything or even can't even pay for, you know, their special privilege, but that doesn't matter. That sense of entitlement is always there with them. And, you know, the fact they have to put up with all these lesser people around them who are constantly not living up to their standards is something that people around narcissists get real used to real fast with them. Okay. Take advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends. This is where they'll walk all over you. This is where they will walk all over anybody. Lie, cheat, steal, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And there's even a question in the psychology world about whether the intent is to actually squash the people around them, or is it just such goal-motivated thinking and acting that they don't even think about the people they're stepping on. It's not even a consideration. It's not even like a twirling their mustache. Oh, I get to, as an added bonus, I get to step all over these people, right? It's not clear that that's even part of the computation necessarily for all narcissists. So I'm sure it is for some, but it's not necessarily universal in nature that they will take great joy in stepping all over other people. But I'll tell you what they won't do is take responsibility or accountability for it. And if you catch them out and call them out on it, you're going to be at the receiving end of their ire, and that could mean, anything needed to get you out of their way or get you to stop criticizing them or making or humiliating them. All right. Lack of empathy. They lack empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Now, it doesn't say here, and let's be really clear, because, this is an important point to know about human beings. It does not say that they are incapable of empathy. It doesn't say they don't have any empathy. Personally, I don't think it's possible to live in this world if you can't have some degree of empathy. I don't think there is such a thing as a life form that doesn't have some concept of, at the human level, certainly. Okay, I'm not talking about, cells, right? But a characteristic of life, especially advanced forms of life, is this theory of mind, is this idea that other minds exist independent of you, and that you're not the only mind that exists in this world. And this is a pretty standard stage of not stage development, but it's a point that that human beings reach between 3 and 5 years old, where they come to recognize, up until then, the entire world is them. Every single person or thing or entity or whatever that they're interacting with is just an aspect of them to serve them. And it's not till they have this kind of, oh, wait a minute, you are someone, you're my mom, you exist as an independent person from me. You've got your own mind with your own ideas and intentions and goals and plans. And just because I'm here doesn't mean you're here to serve me 24/7, right? This concept. I have to wonder whether that step fully engages for people with NPD, but it's an awful young step. So I don't think that's really the problem with people who have NPD, is that they didn't really recognize that other minds exist. I think they're very aware of that fact, because their life is all about manipulating those minds for their purposes, for the narcissist purpose. But what they do miss is the importance of empathy. They don't get the point. They don't see the point of it. It doesn't make sense to them. And you have to have, at least according to the way I understand the term empathy, you have to have some degree of empathy to be able to recognize the other person exists and has thoughts and feelings that aren't you. That's a granting of your existence that is not my existence. And that's, to that degree, you're empathizing with the person. You're recognizing their existence and that they have feelings and emotions too. But taking it any further than that, why? From the narcissistic point of view, why? Why would I do that? Why would I care what they're thinking? Why would I care what they feel? Other than to learn the signs and signals and flags, green flags and yellow flags and red flags, of what your behavior is going to indicate, so that I can get in there and get you to do what I need you to do or want you to do when I need or want you to do it. And this is, parents first, of course, authority figures, siblings, people around them. They're going to learn in a schoolyard. This is where all of us develop these skills. All of us do. But narcissists don't empathize. They lack empathy, and they just unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. Okay, they just don't see the point of it. is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of them. That's an interesting one, as far as I was concerned, because there is this sort of preoccupation, as it said earlier here, this grandiose sense of self-importance, this preoccupation with success, however that manifests for them. They're driven by an envy of others who have that success. And because they don't empathize, it's not a matter of, well, let me go find out how this person did it and then I'll do it too. It's probably more often, I'm supposing, let me figure out how I can go take it from them. You know, it's a little easier to take it from you than to have to go build it all myself. You know, it is the path of least resistance in many ways. And they often, last point here is they show arrogant, haughty behaviors or attitudes, right? Arrogance, conceit, you know, again, right? Disdain for others. It's a thing, right? They're really not about other people. And that's also reflective of the lack of empathy. Now, there was an article from Psychology Today, what happens when a narcissist gets upset, from 2020, which I pulled. And I think I'm going to just skip to the end on this one because there's a lot here, and I recommend you actually check out the whole article. But it talks in some detail about it's helpful to think of a narcissist's ego as a mercury thermometer, one that moves up or down based on the amount of attention and validation he gets or she gets as valuable and superior. The narcissist walks through life without a solid internal anchor, depending instead on a precarious strategy in which moment-to-moment circumstances determine the state of how he feels about himself. Given how complex and constantly changing the emotional demands of daily life are, for any of us, the narcissist's misguided strategy, an emotional insurance policy of sorts, is concerning and faulty. If, for example, this is the part I like this. If, for example, the narcissist's ego and emotional coping strategy were headlines, any of the following would apply. Imagine these as headlines for the narcissist, right? Self-worth at stake. Structure built on fault zone, or project doomed to fail. This is like how they're thinking. In the case of the latter, the project that suffers the most are relationships that can't survive without proper emotional management. So it gets down to this bit here where it says, in short, the narcissist isn't motivated by trying to hurt those close to them. Hurting them is simply an inevitable byproduct for anyone close to a person who's trapped in an adult body, but operating from a child's level of emotional development. And I think that's really key to all of this, is that they're, you know, like we saw in Scientology, the big, huge crime is treating children like adults in little bodies. But for narcissists, they're children in big bodies. They never really grew up inside. And that's why so much of their behavior is so childlike, so bullying, so mean-spirited, so emotionally inept. It's so emotionally fragmented and bizarre. It's all inappropriate and out of left field. And you're just like, what? How? What? You know, and this is one of the key reasons why. Secretly, the narcissist says to himself in such moments, well, they may feel upset after our interaction, but no one has any idea what it felt like to be me. You know, it's always, everything is always from their perspective. And for a lot of us, our life is driven by our perspective. But empathy is all about being able to see things from other people's perspective. And these guys can't do that. So everything is always phrased in terms of them and their feelings. Don't you get how difficult this was for me? Don't you understand? You know, this kind of thing. The narcissist ends up justifying his behavior because he tells himself that his own crosses to bear are so much worse than anyone else's. It is for this reason that clinicians often talk about the astonishing type of reasoning a narcissist employs in casting themselves as a victim. And this is where we get that phrase or that concept of DARVO, D-A-R-V-O. DARVO is deny, attack, and reverse the victim and offender. Okay, so here comes an accusation, here comes a call out, here comes an attack against the narcissist. First, deny it. No, that's not true. Nope, 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 nope. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're saying, nope, not true. Reverse it. You're the one who's at fault here, not me. Oh, no, this isn't me, this is you. And then reverse victim and offender. I'm the actual victim of these circumstances here. How dare you imply otherwise? And here comes the sob story. Here comes what we called in Scientology the shore story. Here comes the made up bullshit that the narcissist throws out there to make themselves the victim of every single time somebody's trying to call them out, show them that they did something wrong, show them that they were in error, that they didn't succeed, whatever the thing is. Here comes the DARVO. Ultimately, anyone in a close relationship with a narcissist has learned firsthand what happens when he or she becomes unhappy. Those individuals learned early on when he gets unhappy, the whole house gets unhappy too. It's important to note that when those who were close to a narcissist finally end their working or personal relationship with him, it's not happiness they feel, but rather relief. I'll tell you, that's certainly true. I just remember when I left the Sea Org, right? It's just like weights, like just weights off my head, off my back, off my shoulders, you know. It was just so much relief. Okay, so then I wanted to spend a little bit of time here, and we may go over a little bit here. Okay, cool. Treating NPD. Yes, people with narcissistic traits can change. This is according to Medical News Today. Can a narcissist change? However, they need to be willing to. And this is where things get tough, right? Because of everything we just went over. It's not you, it's not me, it's you. How do you get through to somebody like that? That's the challenge. When a person believes they're better or more important than others in some way, that's narcissism. Because people with narcissistic traits want admiration, they may find it difficult to see or admit to any flaws, even when this causes problems in their lives. And they can react angrily if someone challenges their sense of superiority, or they may conceal this trait from others, but not for long. It always comes out, and it comes out really ugly and really hard, and in ways that are so over the top and exaggerated in terms of attacking their target that often a lot of people, especially ones who are more familiar with the target, will be like, dude, you know, wow, that's a lot, you know, and they don't care. They're, you know, that's how it is. Many people, so narcissistic traits versus NPD. Many people have some narcissistic traits. I'll say almost everybody does. This does not mean they have NPD. Similarly, not every person who engages in abusive or manipulative behavior has NPD either. We talk about the cult mindset, or the way that mindset is, and identity is driven by taking the narcissist, the predator's personality, and laying it over their own and making themselves more like that person. You know, again, we develop all kinds of narcissistic traits. That doesn't give you NPD as such. It's a long-term mental health condition, NPD is, that affects a person's personality and way of thinking consistently over time. Whether a person has NPD depends on whether they meet the diagnostic criteria for the condition. And what I was just reading to you were diagnostic criteria for the condition. exaggerated sense of self, importance, envy of others, lack of empathy, etc. You have to have 5 of these things in order for the DSM to confirm a diagnosis of NPD. There is no standardized therapy for NPD. It's a myth that they cannot change, and people with NPD can change. They change over time. They change with age. They change with maturity. They change with circumstances. They can have epiphanies just like anybody else can. And epiphanies are moments of incredible change for us, cognitively, emotionally, right, psychologically. There's no single approach or type of therapy that therapists use for this condition. Therapy can help a person reduce their narcissistic traits, whether they have tendencies alone or full-blown NPD. For this to help, a person must be willing to be honest about their behaviors and commit to changing. Nobody, including a therapist, can force a person to do this. There is promising research apparently in transference-focused therapy. I'm not sure what that's about, but it's part of this article here. Clinicians may also use schema therapy. We've talked about schemas before. In schema therapy, a clinician works with a person to identify the core beliefs they use to understand themselves and the world, and then replace them with more balanced ones. And this would be a treatment modality, schema therapy, that would be useful for almost any cult member coming out in recovery, because you really need to dig deep down to get, especially for long-term and second-gen members, I believe this is very, very true, that you really got to get down to the core of who you see yourself as and really take a good look around. And it's deep within us, right? You can watch those movies Inside Out, right? It's like deep, deep, deep down. Are these core memories, core ideals of who and what we are to ourselves and how we put ourselves out to the world. And cults mess with that in ways that are so deeply rooted, right? That are so invasive that it can, that is really kind of shocking how fast they can turn things around at that deep of a level with people. That's one of the things that makes them dangerous and destructive. Okay. And here, do people with NPD change as they get older? Research has found that the prevalence of personality disorders, including NPD, so this is across the boards with personality disorders, generally decreases with age. A small 2014 study found that 53% of people with NPD were in remission 2 years later. This suggests narcissistic traits may change with time. However, this does not mean that a person will spontaneously get better, nor that they will necessarily become safer or easier to have a relationship with. People without NPD can still score high on narcissism as a trait and may still engage in manipulative or exploitative or abusive behavior. Love will not change a narcissist. That's not how it works. Because empathy is not the problem, or lack of empathy is not, it's a problem, but it's not the thing that they're going to accept and fill themselves up with. They don't see the point. Emotions, empathy, understanding other people, compassion for other people, loving other people. What? Now I have said, and I've seen that there are cases where having children or a family life, a meaningful one, can be a factor in reducing or affecting a person with narcissistic traits. Because there's a lot of biology connected with having kids, especially for females, more so than males in terms of hormone changes and all that. So you could think from the outside, oh, well, love is changing this person. Not exactly. It's not like they found the right person and now they're not a narcissist anymore, is what I'm trying to say. Healthy relationships, in terms of having relationships with people who have NPD, it's damn near impossible. Healthy relationships require mutual respect and a desire to care for one another. This can be challenging for people with NPD. They can and do have relationships, but without treatment, these relationships involve a persistent pattern of exploiting others in an attempt to achieve their own desires and inflate their sense of worth. In other words, if you get involved with a narcissist, you can expect coercive control, which is what it's describing here, to be the order of the day. They are going to fuck with you, and they're going to do it on a habitual, routine basis, because that's how they get along in the world. Interpersonal conflict is also a common problem. Issues that may arise include consistently prioritizing own needs over those of others, including children, misusing family resources, such as money, frequent arguments, infidelity, physical or emotional neglect, abuse, or violence. Those are relationship traits of a narcissist. Okay, so wow, we did get all this down in just about an hour. Pretty good. Yeah, that went by pretty quickly. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. The non-malignant narcissism of the Office. Good example there. So, yeah, you know, and there's a. Yeah, it's a funny thing in our society. We're so success driven and oriented in America, obsessively so, ridiculously so. And there's an awful lot of people out there who are trying to get things done in the world. There are people who are trying to do what I do, educate, inform, right? Let people know about stuff. There are people who are trying to do bigger, trying to do more in the world, trying to start nonprofits, trying to start profits, trying to create products, trying to invent things, trying to govern or lead other people, trying to create public policy. There's an awful lot of irons in the fire out in the big wide world. None of that gets done ever with everybody in full agreement all the time. It never happens. If somebody wants to get some shit done in this world, they're going to have to climb over some people to do it. And there is no way around that. There's no universally agreed upon principle, idea, invention, etc. There's always people who have something to say about it. There's always pushback. So my point is that just because people are mad at you doesn't mean you're a narcissist. Just because people are, just because you're somebody who is trying to lead people or get something done with people doesn't make you a narcissist. Just because people hate you doesn't make you a narcissist. None of those things are defining characteristics of narcissism. Everybody hates you, right? That's not on the list. It's everything is dialed up to 11, right? In the same way that, like with cults or relationships, you can have intense groups, you can have intense relationships that can be pretty wild, can be pretty like hairy, can be, wow, these people argue a lot. There's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of emotion here. That doesn't mean there's a narcissist on the scene. You can have a group of people who are it's wild. They're out there. They're even, you know, skirting the law. Maybe they're doing some shady stuff. But that doesn't alone mean that there's a narcissist there. You know, this is its own thing, and I wanted to talk about this tonight to answer questions that I was being given about this, and to stress as much what it's not as much as what it is. So, because it, as we said at the very top of the episode here tonight, way too many people are overusing these terms. Narcissism, gaslighting, you know, etc. These diagnostic labels. So think when you use these words. Do me a favor out there, you know, just think about it. Because use the words advisedly, carefully. Really think about when you use them. It'll help. Every little bit helps because you know, we're all part of society. We're all part of the traffic, right? Okay, and on that note, I guess we will go ahead and wrap up tonight. Let me tell you guys about the podcast tomorrow. I interviewed a Colorado author who wrote a book about Jonestown, and not a nonfiction book. She wrote a historical fiction piece, and it's quite good, quite interesting. And she had very, very interesting things to say. And we took a real deep dive into Jim Jones and Jonestown, and even the subject of Guyana as a country came up, and the ramifications and consequences of it. And all of that. So I hope you guys will check out the podcast tomorrow. That's the Speaking of Cults podcast. And then you can join me here on Sunday for Critical Q&A, 1 o'clock Denver time. I will be here to answer your questions. And that's what we're doing. All right. So talk to you guys soon. All right. Bye-bye.